All right, you guys, we're in our language arts notebook. We're going to take notes on dialogue. So our title is going to be dialogue. Can anybody tell me in their own words what they think dialogue means? Kelsey?
Dialogue means like a dialogue is like two circles like this. A dialogue is like this.
No. Dialogue means when
Can you tell us anything?
characters are talking to each other. When characters are talking to each other. So when you're writing, it makes your writing more interesting to have some things in there that are conversations, people talking to each other. Okay.
Like a speech bubble.
Like, my mom was going to take us to the park. When we woke up that morning, Mom said, "Surprise! We are going on a trip." Okay, so that's something she said. You would put it in quotation marks. Okay, so these are quotation marks, and we practiced this morning during our daily language. Okay, and these go up in the air. They're not down low like a comma. They're up high. Okay, now let's write some examples of dialogue. Okay, number 1, the teacher said and when we start to write what the teacher is saying, we need to put a comma and then the quotation marks. Let's get ready for recess. Okay? And that's when you put the other quotation mark at the end of the sentence. And the period is on the inside of the quotation marks. Okay, so comma, quotation, period, quotation. You also notice that this starts with a capital letter once we start the sentence that is what they're saying. Okay? So make sure that let is a capital letter. Okay, so if you have a different color marker or pen that you can get out, let's circle the things that we need to really pay attention to. The comma, quotations, the punctuation being on the inside, and then always starting with a capital letter. Okay. I should not hear any voices right now. Okay. You can also put the quotations at the beginning. So let's look at what that would look like. Quotation. School is fun, said Sam. Okay, so notice this time there's a comma to separate the said Sam. Okay, so the part that we're putting inside the quotation marks is the part that's being said, or the part that the person is speaking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so when you see that in a story or a book that you're reading, you know that it's a conversation that somebody is having. Okay, now let's look at what it would look like with a question. Sam asked,
What time is lunch?
comma, quotation mark, is school fun? And that's a question, so we put question mark, quotation. So again, that comma is there to separate this part from the quotation part. Okay, now let's see what it would look like if we put the quotation in the front for a question. Is school fun? Asked Sam. Okay, so when we moved this to the front, did it change the quotation part? No, it didn't change. It still looks the same. Okay, but then here we put ask Sam. We have to put a period at the end. Okay, because it's a question, we put a question mark. Up here, we separated it with a comma because it wasn't a question, it was a statement. Okay, let's do a couple more. Let's do like an exclamation mark. Sam shouted, comma, and what is he going to shout?
Ooh.
I love school.
Why are we talking about school?
We're just trying to make it consistent, so it's short and simple. Just using the different types of sentences. And since he's shouting, we're going to put a exclamation. And then the quotation mark goes outside of it. Okay, now I want you to try to write the same thing, but putting the quotation in front. Use this one to help you. What do you think it would look like down here if you wrote, if you wrote the quotation in the front of your sentence? What would that look like? You got it? It's going to look the same, right? We're just moving it to the front. Just move all of this to the front. So put I love school in the front. Not a question, Haley. You're doing I love school in the front. The same sentence, you're just putting it in the front. Okay? You left out your exclamation mark though. Your exclamation mark goes right after school.
What is this? After school.
I love school goes in the front. Got it?
Is there supposed to be? That's so cool.
Got it? Very good.
Where did you get that? Miss Volker.
I love school. Exclamation. Well, this is just a period and no quotation marks. Because you can only put quotation marks around what's being said. Okay? So that's just a period. Got it?
Yes.
I love school. Exclamation mark.
I love school.
And shouted, period. I know, it's hard. That's why we're going to have a lot of practice on this. Okay. Sorry, I walked away. I was looking at everybody's papers, so this is what it would look like if we move it to the front. I love school. Still looks the same, right? All we did was move it to the front. And then you could even say, shouted Sam, or Sam shouted. That's the same thing. Period. No quotation marks anymore at the end. Just around what's being said. It looks the same, doesn't it?
Yes.
As this. All we did was move it to the front. So those quotation marks have to go around what's being said or shouted or asked. Okay? So that's what we're going to practice today in Seesaw. Okay?